Emma is actually going to be doing a presentation on intercultural preparation for our trip. Emma is very interested in Brazil. I don't want to speak for you, but really feels called to the people there. And so because of that, in some of her college studies and everything like that, she's really targeting Brazil. So I thought it would be excellent for her to share a little bit about some things she's learned about the culture that we're going to be working with.
If I talk fast, just slow me down. Once I get hungry and I've had coffee and no food, I get really shaky. And so if I'm talking really fast, that's why. Is there like a little button thing I can press, or will I just tell you? I'll just do this. Okay. So basically one of the important things is just learning about a country before you go just dive into it. And in order to witness to the people, you need to understand the people. So something I learned, I took a class all about intercultural studies, and it wasn't just targeting any country. It was kind of all countries together. And before you go on a trip, really discovering yourself and discovering your weaknesses and the things that bother you and the things that might hinder you when you're on a mission trip. So for me, that's time. I like to plan everything. I like everything to be right on time. And it's not going to be like that in Brazil, just in case you're wondering. Last year, we thought we were late to a crusade for setting up. We got there at like 6. Crusade started at 7, and no one showed up till 7:45. So we're just kind of sitting there chilling, waiting for people to come. No one was there till 7:45, and even then we didn't start closer to 8. So that, I'm an anxious person when it comes to time, and that is something I have to get over when I'm in Brazil. So something is seeing things as different as wrong. Sometimes we think, oh, well, that's not the way that we usually do it, so that's wrong. It shouldn't be like that. And I read this book, and it's called Cross-Cultural Connections by David Elmer. And it's a really good book, and that's kind of what we used as our textbook throughout the class. But we talked about, a whole chapter was about right, wrong, and different. And we always believe that our way is the right way. We associate different as wrong. And something that it talked about for a long time was not judging those cultural differences as wrong, and that we're really quick to judge that and just say it's wrong. And we may not say that, but we think that, and through our thoughts, we also reflect that through our body language, which they may not be able to speak English, so when you're talking, they may not understand what you're saying, but they'll know when you're rolling your eyes or when you're huffing or just looking down at the ground. So sometimes we think they should change and be like me, but a way to get over this is by practicing acceptance and using the differences to learn about their culture. Instead of just seeing them as wrong, use them as a learning experience, not only just about Brazil, but Brazil is a lot like all South American countries. And so you'll learn more than just Brazil. You'll learn about all the other countries as well. Go ahead. Something when you do encounter differences, it's kind of a do's, don'ts list. Do try and communicate Christ's love in all that you're doing, in your thoughts, in your prayers, in your actions, in your conversations with others. Know that when you have the right attitude, you're then going to be equipped with the right skills to use. When you have an attitude of wanting to learn and wanting to help, you're equipped with the right skills. And continually pray for guidance, not just when you're on the trip, but before the trip. Something I think is really important is to be praying that not only that you will be able to show Christ's love, but that the other Christians there will be able to show Christ's love. And even though we're different from other Christians there, we have the same beliefs. And so another thing is, do not be insensitive to their culture. Do not just cluster with your friends in a group. What message does that show to them when we don't want to embrace ourselves with them, and we're too insecure to be by ourselves, so we have to be with each other, and we want to talk with each other. We really want to show Christ's love by being confident in our abilities to just witness one-on-one. Also, do not judge negatively or quickly, which I already kind of talked about. So one of the really central points of the class was about this prior question of trust, and it was something I had never really heard about before. We've done meetings like this before Brazil, and I never understood the importance of them. I thought it was just something they had to do to take our time. But it's really important to have preparation before you go on a trip, when you're on the trip, and then also a debriefing when you come back. So one of the things that we learned was this prior question of trust, and it was just the phrase, is what I'm doing, saying, or thinking building or undermining trust with the people? Or does what I'm doing, saying, thinking have the potential to build or undermine that trust? So is how you're acting going to show the people that you care about them, going to show them that you love them, or is it going to kind of distance yourself from them? So not just when you're doing door-to-door missions or at the crusade, but as soon as you land in the airport and as soon as you're in the hotel. I know one thing that I was thinking about when I was just praying and preparing for this was at breakfast. We never really talked to the people that were helping us or serving us because that was our time, and that was, we were all going to talk English. We weren't going to witness at that time, but just, talking with all the people and the translators and sharing at all times, but also being careful what we're talking about, because the people that work there may not be able to understand, but the translators will hear when you're saying, oh, that's weird, oh, that's different, that's odd. You can go ahead to the next slide. So if anyone was on last Brazil trip, you might remember that Satan was definitely at work with being delayed in the airport for 3 days and all sorts of permit issues happening, and we talked about that a lot at the end. But it's important to know that he's not only at work in that, but he's also going to try and convince you that you aren't good enough. And the chapter in the book about this part was mainly talking about culture shock, and he's just going to make you think that, oh, you misunderstood God's calling, you weren't supposed to be there. But I kind of took it in the context of he wants you to think that you're not skilled for ministry. Even though this is a short trip, he's going to try and get to you, and he's going to try, and things are going to happen before the trip. I know every time before we've gone to Brazil, I've been in urgent care the night before with asthma and bronchitis and all sorts of different things every time the night before, and it was always, am I going to get to go on the trip type of issue. He wants you to believe that you aren't spiritual enough, and he wants you to compare yourself to others. Say, well, they got to pray with this person. They led 5 people to Christ, and I'm just sitting here. I'm not doing anything. So that's going to be something to really, really be aware of. He wants you to think that you're the only one dealing with this, that you're all alone, that you're the only one that feels like you aren't prepared. And that's not true. Everyone is in their way struggling in one way or another. So just want to encourage you all that there's a reason that you're going on this trip, and not to buy into those lies. And they can be subtle, and they can be completely blunt, just thoughts that you think, or you may take something someone says the wrong way. But I just want to encourage you all to be praying against that and just be praying for spiritual strength as well. So one thing that I've always had an issue with is expectations. My first trip, I didn't really know what to expect, so it was my very first mission trip. It was my first time out of the country, so I didn't really think anything. I was just like, this is going to be awesome. And I noticed that I really feel like I got a lot more out of the first time I went than the second time, because the second time I was expecting everything to be just like it was the first time. And I expected to get to reach more people. I expected to get to do more things. But I was in a different position. I was 2 years older. There was different worship. There was a different crusade. It was a different place. And everything is completely different. So even if you've been on mission trips, or even if this is your first time, I want to encourage you to only have a few expectations of, like, God is going to move. God is going to do his will. When you have expectations like that, you won't be disappointed, and you won't almost kind of shut out what's going on because it's not what you thought it would be. I remember thinking we would do a lot more door-to-door ministry than we did, because that's what we did the first time. And a lot of things happened where, since we were late, we had to reschedule all the door-to-door, and it ended up half of them didn't get to happen. So I was sad, and I was like, well, now many more people won't be at the crusade. And I think that really hindered my ability to witness to others, because I was having the expectation that things needed to go my way or they weren't going to work. And I'm not a trained missionary quite yet, and I haven't gone through Bible school. And Reuben's and God and Stephen and everyone had it all figured out. Well, actually, Chris, because Stephen wasn't here. Sorry, Stephen. Oh, wait, go back. There was actually a really cool quote that I found. It said, the great common door through which most forms of negativity enter is through premature expectations. So not only will you just not be expecting good things or expecting bad things to happen, but you'll begin to form a negative attitude. And that's why I just want to encourage you all to just only have the expectations that God is going to move. Another funny thing with this book and the class is all these abbreviations. Our teacher would just start saying things like LALOL and PQT and ID and ITT, and we just kind of looked at him and we had no idea what he was talking about. We were kind of supposed to be reading the book throughout the class, and then we had a book report due at the very end. But most of us just kind of realized at the end of the month, oh, we have a book report due. We should probably all read it. So once we read it, we realized that's what he's been referring to this whole time, and it makes a lot more sense. So the lay law thing, I actually found, I told you about my expectations with time, and just being able to laugh at yourself and laugh at life. That's what it means. So just when things don't go your way, just laugh. Just have a good time. Just smile. Just keep your head up. But also, sometimes I can take humor a little too hard, and I can get a little sarcastic, or I can just make jokes on people that they may not think it's funny, but I think it's funny. So that's one danger about laughing at life a little too much.